command performance, wide stance Camaro, the newest of the all-new Chevrolets, 1967.
67's happening the Chevrolet way. See your Chevrolet dealer.
N100036, the six-cylinder Jacksonville zone office car, was delivered by Fisher Body on June 6th of 1966 as Fisher Coach DD52D. Like all F-Body pilot prototypes at Norwood, it started its hand-built assembly in consecutive VIN number order as the 36th build of the engineering study. By late 1964, Chevrolet was designing their answer to the infamous Ford Mustang. This process began with the XP836 design study that would produce scale models that didn't run out of artistic materials such as clay.
Two-dimensional drawings must be translated into three-dimensional clay models. In the case of the XP836, it is decided to go to a full-size clay mock-up.
Balsa wood.
While this is going on, mock-ups of parts and components are fitted into a wooden framework of the F-car.
Fiberglass.
Full-scale fiberglass model. It won't run, but it looks enough like the real thing to fool an expert.
When this process was complete in the winter of 1965, the potential drivetrains were tested in Chevy 2 X-Car Novas. At the same time, Fisher Body was creating sheet metal tooling that would utilize sheet metal modeling techniques for the coaches that they would supply to Chevrolet. When these processes were refined and readied for test manufacture, the program was tasked with the hand building of the first working prototypes.
Prototypes that do run are next on the schedule. Time for the showdown.
This process would ultimately create 49 working prototypes for the F-Car manufacturing platform, the first Chevrolet Camaros. These cars would be a landmark achievement and spark the longest and fiercest rivalry to ever come out of Detroit, the Ford Mustang versus the Chevrolet Camaro.
Camaro, the new car that's something else, something you've never seen before in a driving machine.
One of three on Fleet and Special Order number 5-10, made by the Jacksonville Zone Office. It carried model number 12337. This gold-on-gold build was the 26th Camaro Coupe ever built. With the 230 cubic inch power plant and a standard 3-speed transmission, its presence in General Motors photo shoots, its impressive ownership history, all make this an important piece of early Camaro history. It was required to be received by R.J. Jones at Chevrolet Atlanta on or around August 8th of 1966 for General Motors photo shoots. NCRS certificates show number 36 being shipped to R.T. Ayers High Performance Chevrolet out of Yukon, Oklahoma, Zone 23. One of three pilot prototype builds ordered by Mr. Ayers. He holds the distinction of being one of the first Camaro aficionados to ever exist. Recognizing the significance of the hand-built pilot prototypes, he requested and received the first and the last build of this study, as well as number 36. These cars sat on his showroom floor as part of his inventory and were used to sell and promote the new model. He achieved this request through his relationships with top brass at General Motors. A full biography of Mr. Ayers can be viewed on the N100001 video. Extensive and exhaustive history searches have gleaned all documented ownership history. Pilot Car Registry's quest to find number 36 led our logistics expert, Miss Jamie Schwartz, to our old friend at the Oklahoma Division of Taxation, Mr. Kent Van Hook. Kent had been instrumental in documenting the provenance of number 1 and 49 in their archives prior, because all three cars had been sold new at R.T. Ayers High Performance Chevrolet in Yukon, Oklahoma. Kent was a resounding overachiever yet again, and the pursuit of prior owners began. It was a lengthy pursuit, as number 36 had been sold many times throughout its storied life in Oklahoma, the first being March of 1967. A reoccurring theme within these prototypes This is because of their 6-month interim use by General Motors for promotional and/or convention use. And as documented in the histories of number 13 and 31, many of the drivetrains had been replaced prior to initial sale because the prototypes had been hand-built without protector plate, and a dealer work order was necessary to start the initial warranty period. It varied from car to car, depending on how many miles had stacked up from the interim use and what kind of mood the participating dealer was in at the time. From small towns with no stoplights to larger suburbs of Oklahoma City, the story remained the same. Oh, I remember that car. I wish I had never sold it. The last owner in Oklahoma had been a back-in-the-day car restorer. He had purchased the car as a roller, but in possession of obscure parts marked pilot, handmade, or prototype. He had fallen on hard times during the early 90s and advertised the car for sale in magazines. A subsequent inquiry had been made by a pastor in Wisconsin, and the man showed up with his younger son to view number 36. The son was an amateur restorer with grand aspirations. When the deal was struck, the pastor retrieved his personal checkbook for payment, much to the dismay of the seller. He explained that a church-going man would accept payment in this form. The seller finally agreed, and the car was loaded and transported away. Best of luck using that persuasive argument today. At that point, Pilot Car Registry had a new search criteria: Wisconsin. Another helpful soul within their Bureau of Taxation was able to help, because the registration had happened only once. Like the vast majority of our research contacts, phone numbers were always unreliable. Many folks had eliminated landlines for cell phones over the years, and the numbers changed surprisingly a lot throughout those years. So we pointed the truck north to Wisconsin with a file folder of original documents for the current owner. We were excited to view the zone office car because it was not only a prototype, but configured exactly as N100001. But it had been equipped with a 110-volt static lighting system that was used for promotional and/or conventional use. After a long day of driving, we sat in the driveway of a very clean, ranch-style home with the obvious loving touches of a woman. The doorbell rang, and the older couple greeted us at the door side by side. Although unannounced visitors were not commonplace, they obviously opened their home to everyone. We explained the circumstances of our visit, and the get-together moved to the driveway while Thomas backed the car out of the garage. My heart sank. The car had been completely restored, but restored in a new owner's vision. It had been a product of his son's work that I had mentioned earlier, and was done quite well, but its configuration was completely altered. I immediately went to the original prototype sheet metal, and most of it was there. Thank goodness. That can't possibly be faked, because only 52 cars were done with it, and we had safeguarded the idiosyncrasies to prevent fraudulent activities. The next stop was the cow tag, a perfect match with our paperwork and the original build configuration. That was a relief. The conversation turned to the changing of the original configuration. He explained that a Granada Gold 6-cylinder was not the final product that his son had envisioned. So all the old parts came off and were discarded. And again, my heart sank. Without any signs of prototype parts, the car couldn't be authenticated. Fortunately, he had a photo album. And within this visual documentary were photographs of all those unsightly gold parts marked pilot, handmade, and prototype. He had never even noticed. Suffice it to say, the trash man had been and gone several decades ago. But the car was the real deal. He asked if we'd like to go for a ride in it, so we piled in. And that converted gold-on-gold 6-cylinder lit up the pavement like a road crew with hot tar. With Thomas smiling ear to ear like a young boy on a joyride, I realized that number 36 had found a good home. The absence of all those priceless prototype parts that had been chucked in the trash can left my mind. I held on for dear life and began to smile ear to ear too. It was contagious.